Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's Davis Cup special, brought to you by the UTS Grand Final.
Serbia power past GB 2-0.
Sinner shines in Italy's comeback win.
And we announce our competition winner for the UTS Grand Final.
Kim, today is the 24th of November and we are here to catch up on the Davis Cup Final 8 action so far. Live from Malaga. We are live from our apartment. There's not a cloud in the sky. I see palm trees. The beach is just behind us. It's all rather lovely, isn't it?
It is rather lovely. And yeah, delighted to be in sunny Spain for a spot of tennis. Can't get much nicer than that, really. We've already seen some fantastic tennis. Hopefully more fantastic tennis to come this weekend as we progress into the semi-final stage of the Davis Cup. The only, I guess, downside is that we're not joined by Chris, who is still very unwell. So yeah, we're really sad that he hasn't been able to join us. But we're going to try and do the podcast justice, aren't we, Joel, in Chris's absence?
I am actually just relieved that you actually know a bit of Spanish, so you've been able to sort of get us from A to B with the Spanish you know. And we had quite an interesting Uber drive, didn't we, to our apartment, with which was very festive themed, wasn't it?
It had a sort of big doll of Father Christmas in the back seat, and then all the windows were decorated with like Christmas stickers. I've never seen such a festive Uber anywhere, and if I'd have guessed maybe a country where I would have seen one, maybe I'd have gone for like the States or somewhere where they get very decorative. The
only downside is I since that moment I've just had Feliz Navidad in my head the whole time, which has been a little bit distracting.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, big shout out to our Uber driver. That was a very warm welcome to Malaga.
Started our trip right, and given we started at 3 a.m. Early flight from Gatwick. There were a few GB fans we spotted on the flight as well. Yeah, it was a very interesting wake up call, wasn't it, when we got into Malaga?
Yeah, and a long day of tennis in front of us with 2 ties yesterday, and with the prospect of if GB Serbia had gone to a decider, we would have been there. Well past midnight. So
I wanted it to happen. I think you less so.
Well, no, I did want obviously to go down to the wire for GB's sake, but one saving grace is that we got slightly more sleep last night than the night before, that's for sure. But before we get into all of the tennis, we do have a very exciting announcement to make, don't we, Joel? Drum roll.
Yes, we are going to be unveiling our competition winner for our UTS Grand Final tickets. We ran a competition on Instagram and Twitter for a pair of tickets plus a behind-the-scenes tour at the UTS Grand Final coming up in London mid-December at the XL Arena. First of all, thank you to everyone who entered the competition. We loved seeing all of your entries, but there can only be one winner. And drum roll please, Kim, it is... Ooh. It's Alexandra McClelland on Twitter. Well done you. Well done for winning our competition. We're going to be in touch with you very shortly on social media to sort out your prize for the UTS Grand Final. But yes, well done to Alexandra McClelland on winning, and we hope to see you in mid-December at the Grand Final at the XL Arena. Yeah,
well done, Alexandra. We will be in touch, so look out for that. And on to the Davis Cup, I think now, Joel, because how have you found the experience so far? We've after we trekked out here, various levels.
You took us to the supermarket. I wanted to go straight to the tennis. You took us to the supermarket to get your Haribo and pastries in.
Haribo, Joel. I was getting the nice.
Sorry, watermelon flavored sweets. I was like, oh, okay, interesting start.
Only because I know that constitutes about 60% of your diet, and
that is very true.
That is
very true.
I figured we'd need some late night snacks when we got back really late from the tennis.
It was a good call. It was a very good call because we did finish really late, didn't we, yesterday?
Yeah, and got to get a few items in for the apartment before we, head to the tennis. So got to think of the practicalities. But, I was thinking and ruminating 4 years ago, Joel, we went to the very first rendition of these Davis Cup finals in Madrid. 2019,
the World Cup of Tennis,
the new World Cup of Tennis, after its kind of shake up, and we've experienced one day of action so far here. I mean, how do you think it compares? Has it moved on and improved, over these 4 years that it's been in this current format?
I mean, I've been very impressed with the crowd and the turnout here. I was a little bit nervous coming and not really knowing what to expect without the fact that Spain are here, no United States either. And without those two presences, particularly with that home support, I was wondering, are we going to be played in front of 5 people in an empty arena? Because we had a bit of that in Manchester, and I wondered if it was going to follow through to the final 8. But the ties we have seen so far, the atmosphere has been fantastic. And I think compared to Madrid 4 years ago, I mean, I remember when we were there, there were 2 courts, and the main arena, the Caja Magica, it was quite hollow, I felt at times. But here I feel like it's been a cauldron of noise, and it has really added, I think, to the atmosphere that it has made, talking about crowds and turnout a non-event and a non-question in the interview room with players and captains, where in Manchester it felt like it was the hot topic, because beyond the GB ties, the turnout was pretty sketchy.
Yeah, and here so far we haven't really had to think about that. Not every seat was sold, but there's sufficient seats with bums on, and the band from different countries. We had a whole block of Dutch fans in yesterday. 5,000 Brits were here, so it really did feel like there was sufficient noise and support, for Italy, Serbia, all the countries we saw yesterday. So
and the experience outside around the stadium as well is fantastic. I think it really adds a little festival experience to it. I do think the weather helps. I mean, it's 20 degrees and sunny in late November, which is beautiful. But yeah, it feels like there's a very, very partisan atmosphere. Everyone's getting involved, and it does make me think this format could work. I know a lot of people neg on the format and want to go back to home and away ties, but I would say come out to Malaga at the moment, because you see it here, and I would say it shows that it can work.
Yeah, they've got a nice outdoor fan zone, which, they've got the weather for that, and we're obviously getting sufficient number of fans here. I know Djokovic has said that he doesn't believe it should stay in one place for more than a year. It has been held in Spain every year since this new format started. It's looking like this format is here to stay. There's no changes until at least 2025 that's been announced. So, perhaps we'll see it kind of move to a different city, but I can't see it kind of changing from it being, a European hub, given that the vast majority of the nations competing are European.
I do think there's time for change, and given that, Gerard Piqué and Cosmos are no longer involved, and it's back with the ITF, I do think that they should look to spread out the finals like they have done, with the the group stages and the playoffs running up to the finals. I think that worked really well when they played across 4 major cities. So yeah, maybe I would like to see it be shared around a bit more, not just in Spain. But I think a European city would be the most logical place. And I think it is an event where in other places you almost look for one location for that stability, like Turin and the ATP Tour finals. But perhaps with Davis Cup, maybe it needs a bit more flexibility, and have maybe single year or 2 year agreements where it does go around a bit, because I think it can bring atmosphere, it can bring a new audience in, because it's a completely unique and distinctive type of experience, and just an event in general compared to what else there is on the tour.
Yeah, I mean, as a fan, I would say somewhere with either winter sun or a Christmas market for this time of year. It would be quite nice. I saw on Instagram yesterday that Caroline Garcia was in Antarctica, and I just thought, oh, how cold.
Is she scouting out new locations for the Davis Cup finals in the future?
Who knows? But I thought, wow, what a place to go on your off season. But Caroline Garcia aside, let's look at the action from yesterday, because we did have GB versus Serbia. This was really all resting on the first match, wasn't it? Jack Draper up against Miomir Kekmanovic. Draper, knew he had to get the job done to kind of give GB any real hope. And no offence to Cameron Norrie, who was up against Novak Djokovic in the coming tie. But that match was, always kind of going to go one way, bar something drastic intervention. So Jack Draper was really, had all the weight on his shoulders. 7-6, 7-6 it turned out. 2 tie breaks. He lost to Kekmanovic, which, kind of crushed British hopes somewhat, I think. But, I mean, how did you think Jack Draper played? I mean, it was quite a frustrating match, wasn't it, Joel?
Yeah, it was. I mean, both rubbers were frustrating in the sense that there were no breakpoint opportunities for either players. And I think Jack Draper would be particularly disappointed with that. I don't think he could have done much more. I think what surprised me most was the level that Kekmanovic brought to the court and how he was able to sustain it over the period that he did, because I know he's got this level of tennis in him, but I've never seen him bring this for as long as he did. And I thought maybe with Draper, he was sort of thinking, oh, waiting for my chance. And that chance just didn't arrive. And it sort of felt like he was always kind of playing catch up. And, the best he could do was take it to a tie break, make it a 50-50 situation and see if he could nab a set. But yeah, I have to give all the credit to Kekmanovic. I was very impressed with the level he brought. I mean, it was a high quality rubber. I feel like both players were certainly playing above, their current rankings.
Yeah, I thought Kekmanovic was fantastic. I hadn't seen him play that well before, and it does seem that he has a lot more potential to give on the tour if he can put together performances like that, because I thought, it's this evidence that, he's recently been training with Djokovic, he's given him some tips and motivation.
I do wonder if the Serbia environment really does kind of spur him on. And it was interesting to see because the feeling among the GB press was that it was going to be either, Laszlo Djere, I think was the expected opponent for Draper. But Troitsky, almost kind of a master stroke by him to pick Kekmanovic, must have seen in practice, something in terms of his level and what he was bringing that he felt like he could get the job done. And it proved to be a very, very smart decision to bring him in, because there's something about this environment that just elevated his level. And Jack Draper was like, he was competing, but it didn't ever sense like he was on the front foot.
Yeah, it felt like he was clinging on, and like you said, no break points. It just felt that he was sort of clinging on, and if he could get like one chance, like one opportunity, he'd absolutely have to take it. And if he could just maybe get it into that third set, but it just wasn't to be. Kekmanovic was very, very solid, and Draper was asked, numerous questions in press about, was it this, was it that? Are you feeling under the weather? How? And he just kind of said like, Kekmanovic played fantastically well, and it's a big learning opportunity for Draper at such a young age, and he did acknowledge also the pressure of having that first match. Let's hear from Jack Draper now.
Yeah, it actually almost seemed a bit louder here than Manchester. I think the Serbians obviously quite vocal. Seemed like we had a really, really good crowd of people. Overall, obviously I'm focused on the match, but it's an invaluable experience for me at a young age. I think also, it's difficult knowing that Cam has to go and play Djokovic after, and that's kind of seemingly a must-win match for me. Like, who knows? I back Cam, and let's see how he does. But it's definitely a tough challenge to go out there knowing that there's a lot more almost pressure on me to win the match. But as I said yesterday, or in press, that's the kind of pressure that if I want to be a top player, I have to cope with and have to perform under. And it's tough not to get the win today.
I mean, what's interesting about that is the fact that he was going into this rubber knowing that Novak Djokovic, who hasn't lost in Davis Cup since, in a full match, I think, since it was something like David Ferrer in 2009, he knew that expectation on him, and maybe that was a factor in in the defeat. In terms of he's still relatively inexperienced at this level, he's still finding his feet, on the tour. So to come in knowing that Leon Smith is looking at you, being like, it's on you now to get this, because regardless of what happens next, we need to take this into a doubles. And it maybe factored into his nerves a little bit, because it's just tough with just the sheer presence of Novak Djokovic there. It's just you're almost kind of going into the tie with your team, what you feel like 1-0 down already.
Yeah, it's a real difficult mental state, isn't it? Kind of, you've got to have very, very strong belief, and I'm not saying that they don't, but you've also got to be pragmatic. And the British fans, they were doing all they could to try and give Cam Norrie the edge in his match against Djokovic, although many felt that the fans were getting perhaps a bit too vociferous. I think there was some drummers, and they were drumming through Djokovic's encore interview at the end of the match. They were calling out sometimes sort of between first and second serves. Djokovic had to tell them to shut up at one point, didn't he? So bit of aggro with the fans.
Yeah, it was a bit of unsavoury scenes. I think it's maybe to be expected in Davis Cup. Davis Cups, I'd say, the atmosphere, everything kind of goes out the window, I feel, compared to Grand Slams and events on the tour. And I do think, watching it from the crowd, I do think that the British band, I do think they stepped over the line at times, and we saw the dialogue between them and Djokovic kind of carry through the match. We saw Djokovic blowing kisses to them, sarcastically, I think, at the end of the first set. And I sort of, I'm not gonna lie, I sort of side with Djokovic, and I think it just shows that the level he is playing at the moment, we were just trying literally everything, I think, to upset him, to anger the beast. But in the back of my head, Kim, I'm not gonna lie, I was always kind of like, why are we doing this? He's playing great tennis already. If we're just going to upset him further, it's going to just inflict, I think, more misery on Cam Norrie. And that, I feel, is essentially what happened. I mean, Cam, he played as well as he could, but when you come up against Novak Djokovic in Davis Cup, with his streak that he is on, I think he's now 21 unbeaten in singles rubbers. It's a very, very tall order without, Djokovic getting irked anyway by the GB band.
Yeah, I mean, Djokovic was asked about this in the press conference, so let's have a little listen to that now.
Well, the entire match, pretty much, but that was disrespect. But again, that's something I'm kind of have to be prepared for. In the Davis Cup, it's normal that sometimes fans step over the line, but in the heat of the moment, you react to, and you in a way, how can I say, show that. That you don't allow this kind of behavior. I mean, they can do whatever they want, but I'm going to respond to that. So that's what happened. And in the end, for whoever was there, you saw. I mean, I was trying to talk, and they were purposely starting to play the drums so that I don't talk, and they were trying to annoy me the entire match. So yeah, we had a little bit of a chat in the end.
Obviously there, he was saying there was disrespect from the British fans, and I do have to agree with him. It's never the right, attitude to take.
I was a little bit surprised by it, because I think the GB fans are more or less, courteous and respectful. So it took me a little bit by surprise that there was some of these underhand tactics going on, but I don't know if it was levels of desperation, knowing that, we were slipping towards defeat. We had nabbed no sets. There had been no breakpoint opportunities. Something needed to change, and it was almost like, is this some sort of intervention from the crowd?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot more than that to ruffle Novak Djokovic. And I did actually laugh at the end of that first set. He blew the British fans, some kisses as a kind of, ironic joke, I suppose. And I just thought that was, quite a nice touch from him in terms of like, you're not actually going to get to me with what you're doing. And I mean, British fans, very frustrating. Every other tie had gone to a deciding doubles rubber. We couldn't even get that far. However, if you think about Britain in the Davis Cup this year, I think Leon Smith said in press, won 4 ties, lost 1. This was always going to be a tough ask against Serbia. We had the worst, draw. So I think, realistically on the whole, the British team shouldn't be sort of too disappointed, because we did have a very tough challenge ahead of them.
We did, and I think a lot of people will look at Serbia as the favourites going forward from the semi-finals, and we shall see how they progress. But from the GB team point of view, I think they've had a fantastic season. Leon Smith continues to lead the charge, and I think as captain, he's done very well with the limited resources that he's had. He's had to deal with the fact that Dan Evans has dropped out, Andy Murray's not here, had his shoulder injury, so he was running really with a skeleton crew here, and I can't really fault the performances of Draper and Norrie. They did and applied themselves as much as possible. They didn't let anyone down, I don't think, but it's just the level that Kecmanovic and Djokovic brought. Perhaps it was expected from Djokovic, maybe unexpected from Kecmanovic that got them through, because you did wonder if the aim of the game was to get to that decisive doubles, because that is where you felt that GB would have had the upper hand. And I think that will be the disappointing aspect of this, is that we weren't able to play our best hand because we weren't able to pick up a singles rubber. And I think that will be the slight annoyance. I think that they just didn't maybe get to that decisive doubles, because I think they would have had the advantage there.
Begs the question, should you play the doubles first? Could you play the doubles first?
Well, I think from GB's point of
Yes,
view, and probably from Australia's point of view as well, they would like to play first. But I mean, I think, with the singles, we had some high quality matches. I think, it's exciting, even though they had 2 defeats there. I think from Jack Draper's point of view, it sets him up very, very well for next season. He won a Challenger Tour title, got to the final in Sofia. He's getting all these incredible experiences and performing. He's still performing to a very, very high level. So I'm excited to see how he gets on, in Australia. I do think him, and I was talking to you about this whilst, watching the match. I still think the level of margin he plays with can be higher. It felt a little bit too much at times on his forehand. It was all or nothing. And maybe there needs to be a bit more margin that he plays for. But regardless of that, he's had a fantastic season, and hoping he can stay fit going into 2024.
Absolutely. Well, before GB Serbia, we did have Italy versus Netherlands, which did go down to the wire and ended up delaying the start of the GB tie by about 2 and a bit hours.
It only went to I think the third set, in one of the rubbers. The GB tie started 2 hours late, was it?
Yeah, which they had scheduled 2 ties on one day. If every single match had gone to 3 sets, gone the distance, we would have been there till potentially 5 in the morning. So perhaps that's something to consider for next year. I know they couldn't play really on the Monday of this week because of the clash with Turin, but it's a tricky one.
They did start at 10 a.m. I mean, that was a good call. I think I think particularly we see in Spain with scheduling, they like to start late. So I think it made sense to start at 10, but having 2 ties on one day is asking a lot, and I'm sort of glad this was the only day that it's happening, because you've wondered whether scheduling had a bit of an impact perhaps on the fan experience, because a lot of the GB fans were just sort of waiting outside, and I'm almost glad the weather was nice and there was the fan zone out there, because otherwise there just would have been nothing to do for 90 minutes or so.
Maybe they had one too many beers before coming in. But it really, yesterday it was the Sinner show, which is very much I think how the Dutch team felt. He was on form in both the singles and the doubles. The first match of the day was, gave Netherlands some hope. Botic van der Zandschulp had defeated Matteo Arnaldi in a last set tiebreak. That was very dramatic, probably, the most dramatic kind of individual moment of the day. It was, going one way or the other. He saved a couple of match points. And, gave Netherlands a bit of hope going into the Sinner Griekspoor match. But yeah, Sinner.
You were loving the Netherlands fans. You I think on your Instagram, did you say they're the Max Verstappen fans?
Well, I just I watched a bit of F1, and we know how dominant Max Verstappen is, and you see this sea of orange, and that's what just immediately I thought, oh, I bet they all love Max Verstappen as well.
Were they crowd for hire? Were they Max Verstappen fans coming to the tennis?
Well, who knows? But I'm sure Griekspoor was pleased to have them there, even though unfortunately, against Sinner, he struggled. It was a close first set, went to a tie break, but then really just ran away from him in that second set. I think Sinner went 5-love up very, very quickly, and it was sort of a foregone conclusion after that point to level the tie off. We were all expecting a doubles between, I think, Sonego and Bolelli, Koolhof and Roger, but at the last minute, Sinner was switched in. And so was Griekspoor for the Netherlands. So we got to see Sinner play doubles, which we don't see very often.
Was I surprised by that? Potentially. I think Yannick Sinner on a singles court, he's had a fantastic, had a fantastic season. He's had a fantastic end to the season, particularly. So I was very curious to see how he stepped onto the doubles court. And I'm not gonna lie, I was very impressed. It was interesting to hear from the Netherlands captain Paul Haar, who's a very accomplished doubles player. He won all the men's doubles Grand Slam titles in his career in the 90s, and he said the moment Yannick Sinner landed here in Malaga is where it went wrong for the Netherlands. And I think part of that was how he played in the doubles match. You can just tell he's just carrying that confidence on from Turin, that regardless of what court he steps on, singles, doubles, whatever it is, he's just playing fantastic tennis at the moment. And I think he gets along well with Sonego. I think they have a natural chemistry on court. They know each other's movements, and I think that was the difference when it came to the deciding doubles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think although Sinner, you asked in press actually about Sinner and how he felt about playing doubles. He said he wasn't particularly confident, especially at the net. So it's definitely something he needs to play more of and work on. But I think being in that team environment, Davis Cup, that really helped. And just having the support from Sonego, he did give Sonego a lot of credit. He said he made it very simple for Sinner. So that's nice teammates there. But and it was also interesting to hear from Sinner in press about how he comes into an event like this where he's got the expectations of a nation on him, and how he deals with that.
I think pressure is a privilege to have it. There are not so many players who have this privilege. Davis Cup pressure is different because it's that you have a big responsibility to show, because you don't have many chances. So it is a privilege, obviously, coming here with confidence and knowing the first day was not easy and they have started so and so the first set, but still I tried to keep going. But as I said before the year, it's nice that the last event of the year is a team event and they can give you good energy. So I think we're doing all the right things. We are a big family, and today we showed it. Now everyone is giving 100%. That's the least thing players can do, especially when they play for the country.
I mean, to hear pressure is a privilege, I think it just shows the champion's mindset, I think, that he possesses, and the fact that he almost, I think, kind of relishes it, and he doesn't bulk under it. And even with Italy, where let's say without kind of Berrettini, for example, there is a lot of pressure on him. He's coming in to do the singles, he's doing the doubles. I think he's just expected to win every single rubber that he plays in, and I think he's just taking it in his stride, enjoying his tennis as much as possible, and he's delivering the results. And I think we're all excited for what we are expecting is going to be Sinner Djokovic part 3 in 11 days in that semi-final, Italy versus Serbia.
Yeah, because it does give us that matchup, which I think is the biggest matchup you could get. Yeah, for two singles players that are actually involved in this final 8. So we look forward to that. That's coming tomorrow, and you've got to think that the winner of that tie is the favourite to go all the way, with the other semi-final being Finland versus Australia. You've got to think it's between Serbia and Italy, really. You would think so. I think I would say the singles rubbers particularly, I think, are going to be very high quality. And who knows? I think we also have the tantalising prospect, if it is 1-1 in the Italy Serbia match going into the deciding doubles. Who knows? Maybe we get Sinner versus Djokovic on a doubles court as well, which could be, I think, equally fascinating. But yeah, I think Sinner naturally kind of stepped onto the doubles court, regardless of how little he has played on it this season. I mean, Kim, would you like to see him play more doubles next season, or do you think he should just focus on, his singles workload? Well, I think he does play a little bit, but he's, because he mentioned in press about playing, in other tournaments, like first round, like you do it to get a bit of practice, but that's very much different ball game to coming up at a decisive tie for, playing for your country. So I think, he knows there's development in his doubles game. That's obviously not where his career focus is, but for instances like this, then sure, why not? But you can transfer so many skills from the doubles court to your singles game as well. And I think it can help make you a more well-rounded player and develop those skills. So I don't see why not. I just think, you wouldn't want to sort of burn out. We know how athletically demanding the singles game is and the tour in general. So I think if he was to play a bit more, obviously finding that balance is key, because really, going for his singles performance is the main, focus. But yeah, sure, why not? I mean, I'm here for Sinner Djokovic in doubles tomorrow as well as singles. I hope we do get to see that. I think it'd be really fascinating, although it may well depend on how long their singles match would last, because yesterday Sinner had to, they have like a 20-minute break, but they basically have to go straight into the doubles. So it would also depend on physicality, but it's a knockout tournament, so you're going to give it all you've got to try and get through to the next stage and think about the consequences later, maybe.
Definitely. And I think, on the other side of the net, just on the Netherlands team, I mean, I think they've had they would have obviously liked to have gone further, but getting here, I think, was an achievement in itself. And I do question, I still don't really know what the reason behind Griekspoor coming in for Royer was, but I think that went the other way, because I think you could see Griekspoor's kind of singles limitations on a doubles court, because Sonigo, I feel like he was just passing him at will at times, particularly the amount of court that he afforded Sonigo. His forehand inside out. There was so many winners, and Sonigo just looking to his bench, getting all kind of passionate and riled up. And I think it sort of went the other way there. So I don't know if Royer was injured, but I would have expected like a Royer Koolhof team maybe would have been more competitive and maybe would have been the better choice than subbing in Griekspoor. Yeah,
I was a bit surprised at that as well. I know Roger's, I think he's, in the twilight of his career, but he's been going so long. He's so experienced, and perhaps that would have helped. But at the same time, it's Harhout's obviously made that call. So they did really well, I think, generally, and getting that first win as well for Van der Zandschulp. That could have gone the other way, couldn't it?
I do love that in press afterwards. They were typically Dutch, weren't they? They were very laid back, very pragmatic in their answers, and they just couldn't get away from the fact that Italy had Yannick Sinner in their team, and Yannick Sinner won Italy that tie, and it was almost like they were powerless to do anything about it. Similarly, probably how GB would have felt with Novak Djokovic in the Serbia team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's only you can only control
there's only so much you can
your own team, and it was very much Sinner dominance from Italy, and they'll be hoping that he can dominate in the semi-final as well. It's going to be tough, but we look forward to that on Saturday. We're going to be reviewing the other side of the draw just after a quick break, so do join us in the second half, where we'll be looking at Australia coming back from the brink against Czechia, Finland's dream run continuing, and also looking at Sky Sports, who have announced a 5-year deal to show tennis in the UK. So do not go anywhere.
This podcast is brought to you in partnership with UTS.
And Tennis Weekly is proud to be the official podcast of the UTS Grand Final in London.
UTS is the world's newest, most exciting, innovative tennis league, playing an entirely reinvented game format that does away with traditional tennis rules.
And the UTS Grand Final is coming to London's XL Arena from the 15th to the 17th of December.
The Grand Final features the players who have won the UTS events from around the globe, guaranteeing the best of the best will be competing for the title in London.
Already confirmed are top players such as Andrey Rublev,
Gael the Monfils,
Casper the Iceman Ruud,
with more players to be announced, including a local wildcard.
So if you are looking for the ultimate day out in London in the run-up to Christmas, then secure your tickets to the UTS Grand Final now.
Session passes start from £31 and day passes from just £51 for a guaranteed 6 matches.
Go to www.uts.live for more information, or use the link in the description to purchase your tickets now.
We look forward to seeing you there.
So let's look back at day 2, which we saw Australia up against Czechia. Australia were in a bit of a pickle. It's fair to say. Jordan Thompson had lost to Thomas Maček in straight sets, and Jiri Lehečka was a set and a break up against Alex De Minaur, the Aussie number 1. So Alex De Minaur really heroic for his nation here, because he came back from deuce at 3-5 down in that second set to win 10 straight points, completely turn the match around, and winning eventually 7-5 in the third set, taking it into the decisive doubles tie. And Australia, of course, have a very competent doubles team in Matthew Ebden and Max Purcell, so they were able to win that doubles tie in straight sets, although coming from a breakdown in each set to get the job done for Australia. What did you make of this tie, Joel? Because obviously it could have been a very different story for Australia, although perhaps surprising that Alex De Minaur got himself into that situation in the first place against Lehečka.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows the battling qualities I think Australia have. I think it just reflects, their captain is Leighton Hewitt, and I feel like he's brought in these, the values that had made him, one of the biggest legends in the game, and he's instilled those values into the team. We saw it in Manchester, where they were given like the toughest schedule. They had back-to-back matches against the 2 toughest opposition. Leighton Hewitt impressed. He just was not happy with the schedule and how it was working, and they managed to come through that. And same deal here, with their backs against the wall. That's where Australia, I think, really, really, really find themselves. And Alex De Minaur, he again is like the bedrock of this team. And I do think there are still questions with Australia in terms of who fills that opening match slot. Their number 2 position, because it has been Jordan Thompson, but I think Kokkinakis was injured, or he withdrawn, and Popperin came in. But that for me feels like their most vulnerable kind of slot, because De Minaur has been excellent in what I've seen from him in Davis Cup this season, and then they get even stronger when it comes to that doubles with Ebden and Purcell. So I think there is still that question on starting strongly, but they certainly finish strongly with such a formidable doubles team. So I think it's like they always kind of back themselves into a corner, but they always just seem to find a way out of it, don't they? Yeah,
and obviously Leighton Hewitt as captain is a great person to have in your corner to enable something like a comeback. And they'll be up against Finland next, and that's later today. And I think Australia remain the favourites going into that match, especially with the strength of their doubles team. And I think it's reassuring for them to know that, should it go to the doubles, that they would be considered the favourites based on, having Ebden and Purcell.
I mean, Kim, even Finland just getting to the semi-finals is an incredible achievement. They don't even have an ATP or a WTA Tour tennis tournament in their country. But it's been, the Finnish tennis is, I think, it's just booming at the moment, isn't it? They've got such quality, players on the singles and doubles court. They've got Heliovara. They've got Rusevori as well. I mean, Rusevori didn't even play this tie against Canada, and they still came out as the victors. So it's great to see what they're doing, and it just shows, I think, in Davis Cup, it's not just all about the powerhouse teams that you think just kind of flood and fill the the rankings on like the ATP tours. I mean, for Finland, it's just like the fight and the determination that they have. I mean, they had a very boisterous crowd in as well, supporting them. They're just loving every moment of it, and I'm loving the fact that they're now in the semis, because it just feels like they've gone from upset to upset. And just carrying on, where they left off in the group stages. Yeah, they're definitely the surprise package of the whole tournament, and they did do very well to get through against Canada, who were without Felix Auger-Aliassime and Denis Shapovalov. I think it would have been a very different story if Canada had their top two singles players. However, Finland, and also Finland without Rusevori for that tie. So Virtanen kind of coming through in that second singles rubber against Diallo in straight sets to force a doubles decider. And then, you've got Heliovara, which, he's a great doubles player as well. Played quite a lot with Lloyd Glasspool, British player. But so they got the job done in the doubles. And I mean, why can't their surprise run continue? You just never know. I'm quite intrigued to see how they're going to fare. They're in the better part of the draw, aren't they? I mean, it does feel like the way it's panned out, the bottom half feels like that's where your champions are going to come from. But certainly there's an opportunity here for someone like a Finland, who knows, to get to the final, because Australia, they're not completely invincible. And I certainly think that first match is an opportunity for them to assert the pressure and go 1-0 up. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've now got the final four, Finland versus Australia, Italy versus Serbia. We did a Twitter poll on our Tennis Weekly Twitter asking listeners and our followers, which of those four nations do you think are going to win the Davis Cup 2023? 43% have said Serbia and 35% Italy. I have to say, I think our followers are probably spot on. I agree with that. I think. Do you back Serbia over Italy? I would. I think. Yeah. I think they've got a real force behind them this year. And I mean, not just this year, obviously they're always a very strong team if Djokovic is there, but just given the way Kekmanovic played against Draper, I think it does feel like it's their time this year. So do you not agree? Do you beg to differ? Let's do some predictions then, because we've got Finland, Australia, Italy versus Serbia. I want winner in the semi-finals and also the scoreline. Oh, okay. I think Australia 2-0 today. I think actually they're going to win in both their singles. And I think Serbia... Oh, I'm going to be boring and say Serbia 2-0 as well tomorrow. Oh, really? Yeah, okay. I think so. I just think Kekmanovic might get the better of Arnaldi, assuming they're going to field both of those players. I feel like it would be... I think I'm almost like it would be peak Kekmanovic if he didn't bring the level he showed against Jack Draper in the semi-finals. Who knows? He might not even play in the semi-finals. It could be, I don't know, might be Laszlo Djere. We'll have to wait and see. But I think I'm going to go Australia 2-1. I think Finland will take it to a doubles. I think they'll get a singles victory in that first rubber. but I still think Australia's doubles team is just going to be too formidable and maybe a step too far for them. So I'm going Australia 2-1, and then Italy, Serbia. Oh, are we going to get Sinner Djokovic? I think we will. I'm going to go... it's hard. I'm going to go Serbia 2-1. I think, again, I'm going to back Italy for that first rubber, but I think Serbia they mean business. They've got Djokovic. They're very, very motivated. I'm not saying the Italians aren't, but I think with Serbia and the support they've got, it's hard to look past them.
So we're both saying a Serbia-Australia final come Sunday, but we'll be doing an episode before we get to that point, so we'll be rounding up the semi-final action. We're heading to the arena a bit later on today to get ready. Before we go though, Joel, some other news that has come in that's just been announced actually, and this will concern specifically UK fans who want to get their dose of tennis on a regular basis. Sky Sports are the new UK broadcaster for the ATP and WTA tour. They have a 5-year deal beginning in 2024, so their coverage will essentially replace Amazon Prime's coverage for those of us in the UK. What do you make of this deal? I mean, it's not a surprise. We were only talking about Amazon Prime ending last week, but are you happy that Sky Sports is the new home, or are you a bit concerned about this?
I think I think it remains to be seen. I will wait to see, what their coverage and their presentation, looks like. The fact that they've announced there's going to be more than 4,000 matches and 80 tournaments across the season tells me that we're going to still see a lot of tennis. I think the big concern, I've raised this before, is going to be cost and access. It's naturally going to be more expensive, versus Amazon Prime, which a lot of people have for different reasons. And I'm just not sure how many people are going to specifically park with what's going to be probably quite a sizable amount of cash to access Sky Sports Tennis. But I mean, they're carrying on. I think some of the commentary and the familiar faces we've seen from Amazon Prime coverage, we will see them, on Sky Sports. And they do have pedigree in tennis. When we were growing up, Sky Sports was the main broadcaster, and it's an exciting time. You can understand why they've gone in for it with Djokovic, Alcaraz, Swiatek, Raducanu and Jack Draper from a British perspective. But I think it still remains to be seen. I want to see what the coverage looks like before I make any opinions on it. But I think things naturally change with time. It's gonna sting, I think, for the first few months, and there might be a bit of a bedding in period. We're gonna have to just see how it goes. But it's a little bit like, I'm a bit sad, but a little bit excited as well because of just the tennis we've got to look forward to in 2024. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, for those of our fans and listeners who do have the package, great, enjoy. We'll be checking it out as well. Obviously, we want to get our fix of the tennis throughout the year. 80 tournaments across the season, so it is the place to get your tennis if you're in the UK now. But that's we've got Davis Cup to enjoy first, and the end of the season, UTS coming up in December. So we'll think more about that when we've got into 2024, won't we, Joel? But I think that brings us to a close for this episode. I'm looking forward to getting a bit of Spanish sun on our way to the arena later on. Perhaps some churros en route. Who knows?
Yes, we do need to find some churros, because that is one of the things we bonded over in Madrid, and we need to keep that tradition alive.
Well, I'm sure we can find some somewhere in Malaga. Don't worry, Joel. We've got you covered.
Well, listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action to come from Malaga and the Davis Cup finals. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can also follow us on social media or email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X. Our handle is @TennisWeeklyPod. You can also purchase Tennis Weekly merch at etsy.com/shop/ Tennis Weekly Podcast, and email us on tennisweeklypod@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out our website as well, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back over the weekend from Malaga for our semi-finals and finals catch-ups, brought to you by the UTS Grand Final. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.